Welcome to another episode of What Brings You In Today.
I'm Erica Bennett.
And I'm Taylor Fisher.
And we just want to thank everyone for tuning in to the What Brings You In Today podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe.
And if you have any questions or topics you would like to see us talk about, you can submit those at sgmc.org/podcast.
Perfect. So today we're here with Brian Pisula, MD with emergency medicine. So Dr. Pisula, what brings you in today?
I came in to talk about some of the things that can bring people into the emergency department, as well as some of the things that people can do in their own lives every day to try to avoid having to come see us.
Beautiful, beautiful. Before we get to those, tell us a little bit about your journey, your history, how you became a physician, and then how you landed here.
Sure. So I grew up in rural central Wisconsin, more cows than people, and ended up going to college in Madison, and then went to medical school out in New York, where I met my wife. And we trained at UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina, practiced out there for a few years, and then decided to move our way on down to Valdosta, Georgia. So we love it here. We like working. I love working in the emergency department. It's a great place to live and raise a family.
So fun fact, we may have more cows here than you do in Wisconsin. And I have indeed hit a pregnant cow before with my car on accident. Wrecked a car going 55 miles an hour because you can't see it on rural roads that don't have lights.
Yeah.
If they're black, they blend in with the road until about, till you're just a few feet away. You can see the outline, and it was pregnant, about to deliver. So I didn't just hit one cow. The owner did let us know I killed 2 cows. It was very sad, but luckily nobody was injured.
Except
this
the cows.
This is a fun story. I had to tell that story whenever I can because not many people have done that. So anyways, very beautiful. And I could have landed in the emergency room. Luckily,
but you didn't.
Airbags were working.
Yeah.
So tell us about emergency medicine.
So emergency medicine is a field where we can take care of anybody from the time that they're a baby to the time they're 100 plus years old for virtually anything that they can come into the emergency department for. Most of the time, people come in for acute complaints, something that is new today that's been bothering them. But sometimes people don't have good access to primary care, or even if they do, they've had a problem that's been going on for a while, say like back pain, maybe for months, and it's just gotten a lot worse today. And so they come into the ER to make sure that nothing worse is going on or just to get some relief from what they're going through.
I feel like I've seen a lot of pictures with you holding babies.
Yes, yes.
Because we get a lot of good compliments and patient reviews from when you've treated their child, which you have several children.
Yeah, I have 4 kids.
Okay.
Yeah, my oldest is 9 and my youngest is 4. We had 4 and under at one point because we're those kind of people.
You and Dr. Seabolt can be best friends. He was here earlier today, but... All right. Healthy habits. The reason we asked you to be on this show is because you did a presentation for us about a year ago for our young professionals group, just kind of educating the public on how they can become healthier, live a little bit healthier lifestyle, and why they would want to do that. So get us started with that.
Sure. So I think that, the general theme of what I want to talk about today is that you have a lot more control over your health in most situations than many people realize. Generally, I tell patients that if you don't smoke, you don't drink alcohol to excess, you eat a relatively healthful diet most of the time, you exercise to a moderate intensity, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later, at least 4 to 5 times a week, get a reasonable amount of sleep most nights, and you have some close social family connections, and you avoid becoming overweight, it is very, very likely that you will live well into your 80s and in pretty good health. If you don't do those things, or you let one or more of those domains start to break down, that's when we start to see people having really significant health problems at a much younger age than they ought to. So people in their 40s having medical problems that we really ought not be seeing until you're into your 60s or 70s. And of course, there are circumstances where people are just outright unlucky, right? If you're, a man in their 20s, I had this not that many years ago, a man who was only in his mid-20s, I diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, right? There's no way he's going to marathon that away, unfortunately, right? He could do all the right things, but at the end of the day, there are occasional situations, but that's rare. It's important to emphasize that what happened to him or those rare circumstances where somebody gets something like that. Many of those other medical problems were to some degree preventable when we're seeing people in their 40s having things like heart attacks.
You gave the healthy or the analogy of the 2 Oreo thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us that.
Yeah.
It was a sad story.
Sad story about an Oreo?
Well,
You've already told sad
kinda
stories
sad.
about cows.
It's sad if you like Oreos.
Yeah, well, because Oreos are delicious, and so they're like I think they're one of the foods that's universally enjoyed. Like
Right,
most people
yeah.
really enjoy an Oreo cookie, and so the whole point of this is to just kind of emphasize that a lot of times when people are trying to lose weight and they're trying to eat healthily, they get into this mindset of I have to be hungry, I have to be kind of starving myself, when in reality they just need to make better food choices. And I kind of make the example of Oreo cookies versus apples. So each Oreo cookie has 70 calories roughly. So and a serving size of Oreos is 2 Oreo cookies, and that's about 140 calories. The thing is, though, that's also the same as 2 medium-sized apples. So if you were to visualize this, or you could do it in your own home, you can take 2 Oreo cookies and set them in a bowl, and then you can get 2 medium-sized apples and cut them up into slices and set them into another bowl. And understand that clearly there's a lot more food in one bowl than the other bowl, but it's the same amount of energy, which is just all a calorie is a unit in physics of energy. So there's the same amount of energy in both these bowls, but this bowl of apples I'm going to be eating for probably 20 minutes, right? And it's got fiber in it. It's going to make me feel a lot more full. It's got some water in it, so it's going to hydrate me as well. And it's also got some nice sweetness to it, so maybe it'll kind of help with that craving too. Whereas the Oreo cookies, you're going to eat those and you're just going to want more. And it's very, I think, rare for most of us to be able to just have 2 of those. I joke with people like doing a line of Oreos, right? Like you don't have 2, you do like 12.
I told you this was a sad story.
Yeah.
I don't really like Oreos.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you could make it any example you want. So another good example I tell people is to just take your like favorite boxed snack food. Like what would be, do you have an example of like a boxed food that you enjoy or a snack
Not
food
much
you
of a
enjoy?
snacker,
Yeah.
really.
Well, see, this is something you don't have to worry about then because these things don't
there
appeal
go.
to you.
You
But
don't have to worry about this section.
I
You
like
got this one covered.
cereal, I guess.
Cereal's a pretty good example too, because cereals are deceptive in their marketing. They'll mark themselves as being healthful when the vast majority of them aren't.
I don't even try to eat the healthy ones. If
yeah.
I'm eating cereal, I
Right.
just go for
You
it.
might as well go for the ones you ate as kids.
Weigh it out. That's the thing I always tell people, because then you'll see how little you get. When you see the
for the
serving
serving
size,
size.
like most of us think a serving of cereal is a cereal bowl.
Yes.
It's like a cup.
It's
Yeah.
not a cereal bowl. It's like a third of that cereal bowl. And so when you fill up that whole cereal bowl with Fruity Pebbles or something else like that, it's much closer to like 400 or 500 calories, not the 130 or 140 calories that's on the back of the box. And most people, I mean, I don't expect most people to take a scale and weigh out their food, but sometimes it's informative to do that just once to visually see what does a serving of this actually look like, and is that how much I actually typically portion for myself. And when I'm thinking, I'm only having a light snack, when in reality, perhaps you're having a lot more than a light snack.
Yeah. So it's like switching out the foods for things that if you feel like you need to have more, you can have more of.
Yes. Yeah. Because if you're hungry, right, you're very likely to have difficulty being successful long term in a desire to lose weight or just kind of
like
over
binge eat.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you get into that weak spot where you've been doing good, but
Yeah.
you've been hungry for weeks, and then you have a day where you just don't sleep enough, or maybe work was super stressful, or your kids are just being difficult today, and all of a sudden you've eaten like a tub of ice cream. And that's a kind of an effect, like a relapse, if you will. And so a lot of times avoiding being in that stage where you feel so deprived all the time is really important, because you don't want to end up having a situation where you end up just undoing like everything you did
Right.
for 2 weeks by having one day and you really can do that, where you just eat really aggressively.
This
on
must
that
have
day.
been why your talk impacted me so much last time, because I feel like you're talking to me.
Yeah. Well,
But get back out there.
yeah.
As far as exercise, well, first of all, still on the food, I've heard before like drinking water before you eat could be helpful because it just helps. Is that accurate? Or
Yeah, being hydrated, or just in general, if you're hungry, a good idea is like if you're hungry and it's like not time for you to eat right now, is to just have a large glass of water and see if that does anything. That's one of those pieces of advice that can often seem very glib, but it really isn't. If you take a big, especially like a nice cold glass of water, and drink that and give yourself like 30 minutes, a lot of times you'll find that intense kind of hunger sensation that you just had actually fades off pretty easily. Especially if you want to add like some kind of flavoring or something to the water for some people that makes them feel like they're having something more. So like things like Crystal Light or Mio, anything that's a sugar-free option is going to be a good thing.
There's a protein, some type of protein. I can't remember what it's called, but I get it from the nutrition, GNC type place.
Yep.
But it's one that you can mix with water instead of milk, and it's very low calorie. And I have found that if I put that and do that in a water in the morning with like a light bar, I'm much like less likely to get hungry before lunch.
Yep.
So protein, what's the importance of protein in a diet?
Yeah, so protein's your most important macronutrient for a lot of reasons. One is that it's the most satiating. So you'll hear me use this term a few times. So you want bang for buck, right? So if I'm going to eat, and we were just talking about this with apples, which actually don't have protein in them at all, but it's more of the visualization of how much food can you get and how full can you get for those amount of calories. So protein, hands down, is going to make you feel the most full for the least amount of calories. So if you can have high protein density foods in all of your meals, you are much more likely to continue to feel full for an extended duration after you eat. Whereas if your meal is heavy in fats, are the least satiating. So even though carbs get a really bad rap, fats actually fill you up the least for the most amount of calories. So a really good example there would be peanut butter. So peanut butter is often kind of projected as being this super healthful food. There's nothing inherently wrong with peanut butter. I occasionally will eat peanut butter. It's just important to understand that peanut butter is really high calorie density. So 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, which again, if you measure out 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, it's not as much as you're probably thinking it is 190 to 200 calories. Its main macronutrient is fat. And so you're unlikely to feel very full from eating 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. Whereas if you flip that and you say, what can I get for 190 calories that's got a lot of protein in it, you could get like 2 cups of cottage cheese for that, and that would give you about 30 grams of protein. You get 2 cups of yogurt, again, for about the same, if it's a light yogurt, you could get about another, again, 25 grams of protein. And that's going to fill you up for a lot longer.
Are nuts in general like higher in fat?
Yeah, okay. Nuts are just high fat density, and they're going to, again, be low satiety.
They're also marketed as being very healthy.
Yes, so I will see people, and that's the thing. So we can.
So you can't trust marketing?
No.
Okay, you're going to put us out of a job.
Except for yours. That's the thing. There's lots of so this is America. I love America. I love capitalism, and the idea that companies are going to market themselves in a way that's going to get people to buy their products. That's the way our society works. I don't have a problem with that inherently, but people have to understand that lots of things are going to be marketed to you from the best possible angle, right?
Okay.
So for nuts, for example, I'll see people, getting bags of, unsalted almonds, and I know that almost universally they're like, yeah, this is a good, healthful snack. And every time I see that, I'm like, that's a really high calorie density snack that doesn't really fill you up very much. And if you get like a little bag of almonds and you just kind of munch on that throughout the day, that's actually probably way more calories than you think it is. And it's probably not doing a whole lot to make you actually feel full. You'd probably be a lot better off by just having like a meal that's got some decent protein in it, like either a dairy-based protein. Chicken is a really good protein. Eggs, fish products are great protein. Any of those things where you're going to just be better served going for a proper meal.
Are you a big almond eater? Because your face right now is just...
I eat almonds, I eat cashews, but no, my face is like this because my next question, which we already know. You already know this. Y'all already know this. Celsius. What? Tell me.
Nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all just...
Because I see it, first of all, I'm not the only one addicted to Celsius because I see everybody in this world like always have a Celsius. They really do give like a clear energy to me that's not like a Red Bull or whatever and it's low calorie. But I worry there's got to be something like... crazy in there, but they do market. So the reason I mention them is because their marketing is like live fit, no artificial, whatever, all these little things, and you increases your metabolism. And so I did do a little research, and like inherently, if you have more energy, you're more likely to move and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily in and of itself provide those benefits.
Virtually
so it's kind of a weird marketing thing.
Everything that they're listing there is caffeine.
I actually thought it was a good drink for you, and I didn't realize it was an energy drink for like a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's just an energy drink. The way they market a lot of that is because they derive the caffeine from green tea. And so, I don't know that it really matters where you're deriving. Caffeine is just a chemical at the end of the day. Again, things like Celsius, all the rest of them, it's important to emphasize that these aren't going to be the thing that makes you lose weight or anything else. It's just more of, you want to be careful with your caffeine consumption too. You don't really want to have, for most people, about 400 milligrams of caffeine is pretty much what you should be having in a day. So that'd be like 2 Celsiuses in a day, or like, a big cup of coffee and a Celsius in a day. That's about it. And generally speaking, if you keep a normal schedule, you shouldn't drink caffeine after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because you should be trying to get to sleep at a reasonable hour. So if you're having, caffeine late in the day, you might have trouble sleeping at night.
Good segue. Sleep.
Yes.
I was just about to say my favorite snack is a banana. Is there anything negative about banana?
Yes. Yeah. The only thing negative I'll tell you about bananas. Yeah. So not all fruits are super great for you. So some fruits are relatively similar to candy, effectively. So
that's why I like them so much, I guess.
Like they give you like a natural high, and then you're like, wow.
Yes. So bananas are one of those fruits that is really, really high in its sugar content, pretty low in its fiber content, and it's actually a high calorie density fruit. So if you were to pick like the fruits that are absolutely the best for you, it's going to be the berries. So blackberries, raspberries, strawberries.
I don't like them.
Yeah, those are the best. They're low calorie density.
Though. Like,
yeah,
it's a texture thing. Banana is one of the only fruits I can tolerate.
Yeah, and which again, it's totally fine if you know what it is for it. But things like grapes are not super great, super high sugar content, not much in the way of fiber. And then a lot of your citrus fruits are, your tropical fruits. So things like papaya, mango, and pineapple likewise fall into the category of really high sugar content, relatively low fiber content.
What about watermelon?
Great.
Lots of water.
All the melons are actually pretty great. So your cantaloupe, watermelon. Again, you're looking for a fruit that has a lot of density for low calorie. I feel like for a very long time, this is a concept that I want to make sure I emphasize. For a long time, I did not understand why are vegetables and fruits like quote unquote good for you? Like where does this come from? And for a long time, and I think for a lot of people, the idea is still, well, like you need your vitamins and minerals.
Yeah.
Like that's not it at all. That's not it even kind of. You can get all that.
That's weird because I do think you're getting like vitamins from your
you do get some, but that's like not the main reason.
Okay.
The main reason is satiety. It's food. You're getting lots of food for almost nothing, right? So like when you think of like a salad, like why is a salad a good option? Because assuming that it's a actual decent salad where we've got like spinach or like dense leafy greens, we've got tomatoes, we've got cucumbers, peppers, onions. We've got all the good vegetables in there. Maybe we've put some baked or grilled chicken on there. And then we use like a light vinaigrette or a honey mustard, and we're not putting a heavy fatty dressing on that. When you put that all on a scale, if you were to look at it, you can get this huge quantity of food for very little in the way of calories. And it's going to take you like 30 to 40 minutes to eat through that. That's why it's good for you. It's the same thing with like broccoli and cauliflower and all the big, what we call the carnivorous vegetables, Brussels sprouts. They all kind of fall into that same family. You get a ton of food for very little in the way of calories, and you also get a ton of fill-up for very little calories. And so I think a lot of that gets lost in the conversation in the United States about weight loss. It should all just be about what can make you feel full and satisfied, not like I'm starving, give you good nutrition, and keep you going.
Is it, how much of it is mental, like mind over matter? Like you feel like if you're eating, something that's smaller but more delicious. I mean, like I know you really get full from that, but you're not satisfied maybe in your, because you're like craving something else.
Yeah. So I think that you shouldn't ever, I'm not a big fan of restrictive diets that don't allow you to eat
I do remember you talking
anything
about that too.
ever. Like I think I've joked about like keto is one of my punching bags. I hate the keto diet. It first of all has no scientific evidence that it's superior to any other form of caloric
But it does work.
restriction.
I did it for like 2 weeks and I definitely lost some weight, but I did also then killed it and gained it all back.
Yeah, so that's what happens with keto more often than any other diet. You're right, it is effective when people are on it, because when you think about what keto does is it blocks you out from most carbohydrates, which is going to be most of the snack foods, which then translates to most of those high calorie density foods that people eat. So of course, if you say, oh, I can't eat any of that, and I'm just going to be focused entirely on proteins effectively, yes, you're going to lose weight because you're going to be calorie restricting is what you're actually doing. So the problem I have with it, though, is to say,
it's very hard to
well, I'm never going to eat sugar. I'm never going to eat chips. I'm never going to eat a piece of bread. I'm never going to have a pancake. Like, that's not very realistic for the rest of your life. And so I would much rather that people have a diet that says, I can eat whatever I want. It's just I choose most times, more often than not, to have my diet be mostly vegetables, fruits, and high protein meats and dairy products. And I rarely enjoy things that are coming in boxes or bags like cookies, crackers, and cereals. I very rarely go out to eat fast food or sit in a restaurant. And I rarely eat dessert items. If that's your general diet, you're almost certainly not going to have a problem with weight
and
issues.
portion control is very important because the portions we get served usually at restaurants are like
huge,
way bigger than what we're supposed to have.
Yeah. I think a good thing too, another good piece of advice I've heard is to ask yourself why you're eating something when you're eating it, right? So I work in the emergency department. People can sometimes be super grateful to us, and we appreciate that. So we often are showered with baked goods all the time, like every day. And so it can be, 9 o'clock in the morning, and there's a red velvet cake that's being sliced up and eaten. And people are like, do you want a piece? I'm like, absolutely not. I don't want a piece. It's not because I don't like red velvet cake. I do. It's just, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and I have no reason to be eating a piece of cake right now. And I think that that's part of what's happened.
You're so smart.
When you think about it, okay, so like for our older listeners, okay, if you go back like 50, 60 years, right, things like that just were not readily available because we didn't have as many resources, right? If we talk to our grandparents, right, cakes, cookies, pies, these were things that were reserved for really special occasions. It's somebody's birthday, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas. You would never just get to have a cake for no reason in the middle of the day in like the 1950s, 1960s. It would be very odd to do that. Now, those kind of items that were really have for a very long time been reserved for a special occasion where something sweet and fatty and it's meant to be a celebration has been like, it's 9 a.m. on a Tuesday for no reason
We're
at
just
all.
we're celebrating every day.
We live a very, privileged life in that we have access to so much more than you did back in the day.
Right.
Those people are like,
Which is
it's
not
9 a.m. We have no idea what time it is. We've been here all night.
Yes.
We're just going to eat some cake because we're
They're like,
exhausted.
I'm working the night shift. This is technically
A
my
celebration.
Celebrating I made it through the emergency department.
So it's wonderful that we have those resources, but it does come back to start to bite us in terms of our health. Because you will see if you can Google this online, our life expectancy in the United States is falling. And it has been falling since about 2016 is when we started to actually have a decrease, which means that our generation is at risk for being the first generation in American history that's not going to live as long as our parents did.
Wow.
And that makes no sense because our medical treatments are much better. We smoke at much lower frequencies. Our rates of drinking are much lower. Our cars are much safer. Despite what the media will tell you, our violent crime is the lowest it's been since the early 1970s. And so none of those things that make any sense. We should have a higher life expectancy. And this is even if you exclude out the opiate crisis and then far before COVID-19, we still had a falling life expectancy. The only thing that accounts for that is obesity as well as a sedentary lifestyle.
So let's talk about exercise real quick.
Yeah.
So
We never talked
haven't
about
hit on
sleep
that.
either.
I know, we got to hit on those real quick. We don't have a lot of time. Importance of sleep with your health, and then we'll go into exercise real quick.
Sure. Yeah, so sleep, this is one I'm not great at. I try to get at minimum 6 hours of sleep a night. I think that most of the research indicates that there's almost nobody who can function on less than 6 hours a day. So there are people who say, I can. There are some people who truly can, but the way I've heard it phrased is if the percentage of people that can function on less than 6 hours of night and of sleep and have optimal performance, if rounded to a whole number, is 0%.
Okay.
Now there are decimal points of a percent of the population can function without any impairment at less than 6 hours. So pretty much all of us need 6 hours or more. You probably at about 7 hours are good to go. 8 hours is probably unrealistic for most people and probably isn't required.
Not
for
for
most people
Kara
either.
Hope.
Yeah.
She likes 12 hours.
Wow.
And her Apple Watch proves it.
Yeah.
So, but it does. I mean, there's a restorative aspect to sleep. It's not just, I mean, your body does stuff while you sleep that's imperative to your health.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you'll die if you don't sleep eventually.
Yeah,
it's required. We don't know exactly why, but we do know that eventually sleep deprivation results in death at an extreme. So you do have to sleep. Your body absolutely needs it. It's also essential for weight loss, by the way. So first of all, when you're sleeping, you're not eating. Second of all, it's important to recognize that when you rest, it allows your body to regrow and build muscle and kind of get everything back in line. So if you're not sleeping, the ability to like wake up and be ready to go and going to do workout and making good choices, right? During the day, if you're sleep deprived, you're much more likely, I can speak for myself, much more likely to make bad choices with my food.
Sugar.
Yeah. So it impacts a lot of things.
All right, on to exercise real quick.
Yep.
What do you we haven't talked about exercise.
Not yet.
Okay. What do you recommend for how do you encourage someone to get moving?
Well, so first of all, I'll tell you that exercise is one of the most important things you can do to prevent landing in the emergency department from a preventable illness. There is such a phrase, if you've heard of skinny fat before, I always bring this up because there is a fair body of literature that says that even if you are not overweight, if you are sedentary, you still have a significantly increased risk of mortality, in other words, dying at a younger age than people who exercise regularly. So just because somebody does not have a weight issue doesn't mean that they aren't higher risk from lack of physical activity. Second of all, the biggest single tip I can give somebody for exercise is if you can find something that you enjoy, you are going to stick with it. So if when you're heading off to do whatever it is your exercise is and you are dreading it, you are going to have a very high likelihood that you're going to end up discontinuing that program. But if you can find something that I love this, I'm so excited to go do this, be it, for me, my very favorite thing is hiking. There's not a lot of hiking in South Georgia, but when I do get the opportunity to do that, that's one of those exercises that I don't feel like I'm exercising at all.
Yeah.
I like to go to CrossFit. My whole family goes to CrossFit Wintersville. We enjoy that because A, we do it together as a family, and B, it's kind of like a community. It's kind of like a church where you get together, you know people. There's some accountability. If you don't show up, people text you, where are you, what's going on, like, are you okay? So that is nice. And then other people are kind of suffering along with you, which makes it a little bit more tolerable.
I got an Orange Theory, and I feel the same way. I'm like, oh my, if she can do it, I can do it. Like, we got to do it. Because there's all ages, there's all fitness levels.
Yes.
And, I think a lot of times people are just like so hard on themselves that they down themselves into not having the confidence to go into a gym, having the confidence to go try a workout because they're just nervous about it.
Yeah. And I think that can be a barrier to going to a gym too. And so if that's you, you don't have to go to a gym to work out, and a lot of times you can get exercise just in really bland, boring, every parts of your life, right?
You can walk the stairs.
Walk. Right, just walk,
yeah.
right? All the time. Like, even if you don't need to be walking, like, there's nothing to stop you from in the evening, right? It's summer in South Georgia, but like by 7 o'clock, it's quite nice outside. So get out of your house and just go for like a 1 mile walk for no reason. You're not going anywhere. You can go at whatever pace you want to, and then you can gradually increase that distance. If you have joint problems or knee problems, maybe a walk isn't a thing for you. You can get a stationary bicycle that you can even like sit in your chair and do like the little pedals. Ellipticals tend to be softer on the knees. If you have access to a community pool, you could do gentle laps in your pool. There's lots of options to get exercise, but if you find something that you don't hate while you're doing it, and that you can take under your own power and decide to do it when you want to do it, I think you're much more likely to be successful in the long term. And then if you can find somebody to do it along with you.
Yeah, that accountability aspect.
Yeah.
Walking your dog.
Yes.
My dog loves to walk.
Yes.
I think my watch has also detected an exercise when I was doing some vigorous vacuuming in the house.
Yeah. Housework burns. Yep. Housework, gardening.
Clean up your house.
Yeah.
Yard work, definitely.
Yes.
My husband makes me go do yard work with him sometimes. So
yeah, it can be a really good exercise. We call that's like the term's called NEAT. It's non-exercise calorie burning, basically. And so that's just things like exactly you're describing. Housework, cooking, being up and moving around. Right. The real danger is when you're just sitting.
Well,
all day.
and think about like DoorDash, and you think about, how you can get your groceries delivered now, and so many things that you used to have to get out and be more active. And it's some catered to you. Like,
Yes.
it's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, yeah.
In our society.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember society has changed a lot, and our bodies don't evolve quickly like that. So very briefly, like, this is a kind of cool thing to think about as well. So our body's ability to store fat is life-saving, right? This is a function that our body has evolved and maintained, and all mammals carry this ability, which is when you have the opportunity to eat, especially high-calorie density foods, your brain is going to reward you for eating that because it is preparing for a time of starvation. So it's trying to keep you alive. So for many humans, billions of humans still today, this is still the case where they don't have adequate food all the time. And so sometimes they're going to be in a starvation state. And so our bodies are evolved to encourage us to eat lots when we can. That's why foods like cookies and cakes, things that are really high fat and high sugar, high sweetness, why they taste so good to us is because we're evolved to find, yes, this is a good thing. Store extra fat because our body is preparing for that starvation to come. The problem is that now in a very advanced country like the United States, that time of starvation never arrives. So we never end up burning all of that energy that we've stored onto our body. And yet that mechanism that encourages us to eat those foods is not going to go away. So until we learn
how do I get rid of that mechanism?
You can't.
I want to
You
rephrase
can't.
that.
It's built into you. So once you recognize that that's a thing.
Right. You're more aware and more able to make better decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when we were talking about sleep, I found this meme that it reminded me too. It says, pro tip, the longer you sleep, the less of the day there is to endure.
Yes. Yeah. A little morbid, but.
It made me think about that when you said that's the less time there is to eat. I was like, oh my gosh.
Unless you're a sleepwalker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
unless you're,
yeah.
that'd be really bad.
Because I
sleepwalking
have a
and eating.
friend who has slept walk. I don't think she's eaten, but she did try to bake something.
Wow. Did it work out?
No. Her mom, she was in college. Luckily, her mom stopped her, but it was from stress-induced sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, real quick. We don't have much time, but craziest thing you ever treated or seen in the ER?
Oh, God. Oh, boy. Let's see. Podcast appropriate.
Yeah. Should have asked you that before so you could have been prepared.
Probably when I was in medical school, we had a bus full of, I think they were Mennonites that crashed off of the highway. And so it was like over 100 Mennonites came into the emergency department in all of like the traditional garb and everything. And the whole ER was completely filled. It was really weird. Yeah.
That sounds like an episode of Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
We were also talking about Grey's Anatomy earlier. And
That might have happened
crazy.
on Grey's Anatomy at some point. I do remember some Amish on Grey's Anatomy,
Yeah.
but not Mennonites.
All right. Well, listen, we could talk all day, but we do have to wrap it up. Kara Hope's telling us that. So we'll have to have you back on later on to talk more. But go ahead, Taylor. Hit him with the last question.
Okay, so we've talked so much about eating. We like to ask our guests what your favorite meal is to eat here.
I feel like I already know what it is.
in the Spice or in the cafeteria.
My favorite meal here at the hospital.
Yes.
Well, I'll be honest, I rarely get food from the cafeteria, but when I do, I usually will hit up the salad bar and just absolutely pack full a big salad with the grilled chicken on top. That's usually what I go for.
I figured you were
We've
going to
heard
say
that,
salad.
yeah.
They do have a really good salad bar, though, because you can
It's
put
great.
everything. You can get that variety that you were talking about,
Yeah.
all the stuff.
Yeah.
So shout out to our food services for giving us good and healthy food.
Yeah, that's my favorite by far.
They also have comfort food, but it's a
They
good,
have
keep
lots
it
of comfort
balanced.
food.
Keep it balanced.
They do.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Pisula, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. If you would like to get more episodes, you can always like and subscribe and get those episodes downloaded and leave us a review. That helps us reach more people. And also, you can give us your questions at sgmc.org/podcast.